And you're good to go.
All right, well, welcome everybody, council members and members of the public and the press and other folks to the August meeting of the North Sonoma Valley Municipal Advisory Council. And I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'll lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm not sure if we have a flag image available, but all right, join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice
for all.
all. All right, thanks. So Vice Chair Doss, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Chair Arthur Dawson,
Here.
Kate Eagles at large,
Here.
Vicki Handren at large,
Here.
Mark Newhouser at large,
Here.
Angela Narder Morgan, Glenn Ellen Eldridge,
Here.
and excused absence due to electrical shortage somewhere in Washington, Matthew Dickey from SVCAC, and perhaps I'll keep an eye out for Jed joining us later. And I'm Damon Doss, Vice Chair.
All right, thanks, Damon. Just a couple of housekeeping things. So we're going to have the question and answer and chat turned off for this meeting when public comment is open. If you'd like to comment, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom to be recognized and promoted to speak. Or Hannah, can the public like wave their hand too if they're can't find the right button?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to see them. So
Okay.
only the raise hand function in Zoom.
Okay, use the raise hand function in Zoom. And then you'll be recognized and promoted to speak. If at any time it appears that our meeting has been hacked, we will immediately terminate the meeting and reschedule for a future date. So I'd like to just welcome everybody and thank you for your participation and engagement in this meeting and your dedication to this community. For those of you who are with us for the first time,
Arthur, you muted yourself.
all right, I'll start that over again. I think I did some digitally klutzy thing there. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us. And for those of you who are with us for the first time, the North Sonoma Valley Municipal Advisory Council, which we just call the MAC, serves the communities of Eldridge, Glen Ellen, and Kenwood. And as the most local arm of county government, we represent the people who work and live outside of incorporated cities like Sonoma or Santa Rosa. We are, in a sense, a country town council. Like other advisory councils in Sonoma County, we were established by the Board of Supervisors to act as a two-way communication channel. The MAC serves as our community voice at county government, as a means for us to learn about and access county resources, as a place to identify challenges and opportunities, and innovate solutions in partnership with our supervisor. Our bylaws limit us to issues concerning transportation, health and human safety, community projects, and emergency preparedness. Others can be added at the request of our supervisor. During public comment, we welcome your thoughts on any matter of concern, whether they're within our purview or not. So welcome to the August MAC meeting, and welcome to our council member, Jed Cooper from Kenwood. Okay, so, all right. Do I have are there any amendments or corrections? Looks like there's not.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
Councilmember Morgan.
I think you went out there for a minute, but did you say amendments to the minutes?
Yeah, amendments or corrections.
You know, it has me shown as I came in at 5:59, but I actually came in at 5:30, but I was on the phone and I wasn't acknowledged. I kept trying to get acknowledged, but I don't know what happened. And then when I got home, I came online, but I actually was at the meeting at 5:30 on the phone.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
amend that, but
Hannah, can we make a note, insert a note into the minutes or?
Yes, noted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other amendments or edits or corrections? All right, I think we're good. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from July?
So moved with the amendment
All right.
mentioned by Councilmember Narda Morgan.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
second,
All right, so all in favor of approving the minutes from July, raise your hand or say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved from July. And before we get to public comments, I also want to say that it's my goal to complete the meeting in about 2 hours. Sometimes that's easier said than done, but that's my goal. I think 2 hours is a point where many of us, my brain starts turning off. So if I seem to be rushing anybody, I'm just being aware of the time, but I don't intend to squelch anyone. Okay, so we've received several written public comments, and some of those folks may be here and some may not. And I have told people that I would read those out loud during the public comments, but right at the moment, because Supervisor Gorin hasn't joined us yet, I think I'd prefer to have her hear those. So I'm going to hold off on those. And could we see a show of hands from anyone from the public who wishes to speak on matters that are not on the agenda?
And Chair Dawson, I'm seeing one hand at the moment, so I will go ahead and share the timer slide.
Okay, and we're going to limit public comments to 2 minutes.
Sorry, 1 second. All right, are we all seeing that?
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience there. Our first commenter is Alice. You should now be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 2 minutes.
All right, welcome, Alice.
Oh, hi, good evening, everyone. And I'm wishing that Supervisor Gorin were here to hear what I have to say as well, but I guess it'll go in the record. So anyway, last month during our MAC meeting, we were talking at numerous times throughout the meeting about how people want a big picture of housing and development in Sonoma County. ABAG numbers were referenced numerous times. At one point, Councilmember Newhouser said, "Oh, why are we chasing these numbers? They're unsustainable." So there was a lot of chatter about this. And so I was really surprised about a week later to read in the Press Democrat that Sonoma County has submitted on July 9th draft RENA allocations appeal asking for a downgrade from 3,881 to 1,910 units. And the appeal makes an excellent argument for why those numbers are unsustainable. So I was surprised because neither Supervisor Gorin nor Scott Orr said anything about that appeal. And, truthfully, that strikes me as just a missed opportunity for real, honest communication with people who obviously care about these matters because we show up here month after month to talk about them. So I am hoping that in her update, Supervisor Gorin could say something about the appeal. And I would also like to suggest that everybody read it. If you haven't had the chance to, please read it. It's at abag.ca.gov/news/appeals. And like I said, it makes a great argument for why urban density housing should not be put at the SDC. So thank you very much. And nice to see everyone.
All right, thank you, Alice. And just a point of clarification, when you say the numbers were reduced from whatever it was, from basically 3,000 to 2,000, those are the RENA numbers for the entire county. Is that correct?
Sorry, I just disabled talking for Alice, but she can now unmute
I just want
herself.
to make sure people are clear on
Okay.
what.
well, that's from 3,881 down to 1,900 and change.
Yeah.
Yes, for unincorporated. That
Yeah.
doesn't have to do with the various cities.
Yeah, so unincorporated Sonoma County. Okay, thanks. I wanted to make sure that was clear. All right, Hannah, do we have anyone else with their hand raised?
And there are no further hands raised among the attendees.
Okay, and are there any attendees who have sent a letter that to be read tonight?
Chair Dawson, can I ask one more clarifying question about
Yeah.
Alice's comment? I don't know that we have to unmute Alice. You all may have heard this, but can you guys confirm for me who specifically filed that appeal? I missed that.
The County of Sonoma.
The county. Thank you. Yeah.
I think it was, I think Tennis Wick was the signature on the letter, so he would be Permit
Okay.
Sonoma, I believe.
Thank you.
So I received several letters about an issue at the corner of Carquinez and Arnold Drive, and I'm happy to read these letters just to make sure they get heard and into the public record. But I'd also would encourage, if any of these folks are here, I would encourage you to speak up and read your own letter, just because I think it's more powerful to have several voices. Like I said, I'm happy to read these, but I will be a little bit of a talking head if I end up reading all of them. So here's the people that wrote letters: Margie and Rich Foster, Greg Garazzi, Jean Reggio, Diana Hindley, Deb Poole, and then there's a letter on another matter that I also will read from Deborah Nitsasaka. Are any of those folks here and willing to read what they wrote?
And Chair Dawson, I'm not seeing them amongst
Okay.
the attendees or anyone raising their hand. And just one clarification, would you like me to keep the timer slide up so you read 2 minutes of each one?
Sure, yeah.
All right, thank you.
And before we start, just to let, I think Margie Foster had the longest letter. So I'm going to leave that one till the end, just because I think a lot of these issues are addressed by others, and that way, Margie, I hope you won't feel cut off by that, but I will read yours, but I may not get to the end of it. All right, so the first letter I will read is, and you can, as soon as I say the name, you can start the clock, Hannah. So the first letter is from Glen Ellen resident Greg Garazzi. I live in Glen Ellen and access our home from Arnold Drive at Carquinez. I attended the design review hearing for the Mercantile Building Improvement Project and brought up parking and line of sight issues at Arnold and Carquinez, which in my opinion were not adequately addressed. Since the businesses have reopened in the Mercantile Building, traffic and parking has greatly increased at Arnold and Carquinez. The Mercantile project appears to be underparked. This will only get worse as the ADUs are constructed. The line of sight at Carquinez and Arnold has always been an issue, and now with the additional cars parked on Arnold, this issue has been exacerbated. One must pull into the crosswalk and into the northbound lane of Arnold to have a clear line of sight. These are clearly dangerous issues. How will the county address these issues? And that's Greg's letter. And then I'll move on to another, these are all Glen Ellen residents, but this is a resident of Mound Avenue, Jean Reggio. Please monitor this intersection and make it safe. I have lived near it, using it frequently, and am sure there will be accidents there. I feel unsafe walking across the street, even though there is a crosswalk. Lately, since and during the new construction, this intersection has become much more hazardous. There are many parked cars up and down both streets, making visibility very difficult. Traffic has increased so much that besides it being hard to see oncoming cars, it is very difficult to make a left turn from Carquinez. Please keep our streets safe. Thank you. Signed, a worried homeowner. Okay, that's Jean's letter. And now moving on to a letter from a resident of Glen Ellen on Garrick Avenue. And this was actually written to Mr. Galantine, who I'm afraid I'm not familiar with, but he is, he's at the county. Hannah, do you know what department he's with? Is it Permit Sonoma or?
Department of Transportation and Public Works.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is written to Mr. Galantine of the Department of Transportation and Public Works, and this is from Diana Hindley. I would like to add my support to the request from Deb Poole to make the intersection at Carquinez and Arnold Drive safer by eliminating parking on Arnold in front of the Mercantile Garden Court restaurant. There is already free parking in the lot on the north side of this building and street parking on both sides of Carquinez. It is simply impossible to get a clear line of sight to the right when turning left onto Arnold from Carquinez without venturing out into the street. This is a congested area with a pedestrian crosswalk and steady traffic coming onto Arnold from Warm Springs Road. Drivers turning right from Warm Springs routinely execute a California stop and rarely give the driver on Carquinez a fair chance to enter Arnold. Please consider the many residents of Carquinez, Gibson, Garrick, and Mound who must traverse this treacherous intersection. Only yesterday, my daughter had a near accident. Driver and pedestrian safety should take precedence over commercial business interests. The residents of Glen Ellen deserve this. And then she signs off. All right, so that was Diana Hindley. And the next one is from Sandy Strasberg, who's lives in that area on Gibson Street. I have made that left turn for more than 40 years. When the railing was installed with the new sidewalk at the south of the intersection, our view was blocked from incoming traffic and we had to creep out slowly. Now that we've cleared that hurdle, we have to keep creeping past the parked cars on the right, blocking the traffic lane from the south and waiting for traffic to clear coming from the north. I'm a little embarrassed to say I literally hold my breath as I make the turn. You can't ever be certain because of the speed of traffic and the proximity of the Warm Springs turn. It's an accident waiting to happen. Thank you, Sandy Strasberg. And those are Sandy's comments. And then this is another Glen Ellen resident from who lives on Railroad Avenue. This one might, well, I'm just going to have to see how it goes. Basically addressing the same issues, and it might go a little bit past the 2 minutes, and I apologize, Deb. So this is Deb Poole. Presently, a new no parking designation has been created on Arnold Drive at the corner of Carquinez. This change was to mitigate the problem of line of sight to the Warm Springs Arnold intersection for those turning left out of Carquinez. On August 16th, I spoke with Clyde Galantine from Public Works regarding the new no parking designation on Arnold Drive in front of the Mercantile and its effectiveness preventing parking in that area. He said that the red painted line was all that could be done, with no lines on the pavement or sign being available from his department to ensure no one parks there. His advice was to call the Highway Patrol, which for us happens to be the Napa Highway Patrol, when there is an infraction. I explained that even with no one parking there, you still do not have a clear line of vision to the intersection because the new railing also obscures the view. In order to enter Arnold Drive and make a left-hand turn, you have to venture into the crosswalk and into the northbound lane of Arnold Drive. Mr. Galantine stated that nothing had changed at that intersection, that there would be an outcry about parking if the no parking area was expanded. Parking is a tremendous problem in downtown Glen Ellen, but public safety is more important. Thank you, Deb Poole. Guess I'm a faster reader than I realized. Okay, and then I think the last of those letters about that issue is from Margie and Rich Foster, and I'll see if maybe I can get through this one. All right, you can start. This is also to Clyde Galantine at Public Works. We are property owners at 13925 Railroad Avenue in downtown Glen Ellen. When we exit Railroad at Carquinez, we feel we are taking our lives in our hands. This is not an exaggeration. We steel ourselves for the potential impact as we creep out into that blind intersection, as there is often a vehicle in the no parking area on the corner, blocking one's vision. This area is marked only by a red curb, which is clearly insufficient, as vehicles apparently cannot see it when parking there. It was troublesome when the building work was happening, and many trucks involved were parked there, blocking the view. But we all told ourselves to be patient, and that when the work was completed, the intersection would once again be safe and visible for exiting Carquinez onto Arnold. This was not a dangerous situation previously, as on that same corner, there was a bus stop on Arnold Drive right in front of the Mercantile, which is next to the garden court. Since it was a bus stop, parking there was not permitted. A bus stop sign was clearly posted and no one parked there. My question, is it not possible to post a no parking sign there, clearly visible? It would save potential accidents and injuries. Is that not worth the effort? With the additional living spaces at the Sorkin property and the vehicles that will come with them, this will become an ongoing problem for the neighborhood, as parking is already impacted and the project is not even completed. The sooner that it is clear that the corner area is no parking, the sooner an accident injury can be avoided. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about this. I know I do. Thanks for your time and consideration, Margie and Rich Foster. So those are the letters. Hannah, we didn't miss anybody, did we, that you know of?
I don't believe so.
And welcome, Supervisor Gorin. You may have missed the most exciting part of the meeting.
Well, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Good to have you here. Just to do a very quick recap, then we have another letter to read. We got lots of letters this time, but we got, I think, 6 letters about the intersection of Carquinez and Arnold and the fact that people are parking in the red zone and blocking the view, and it's become a dangerous situation. So there's requests to for the county to do something about that. One idea was just to post a no parking sign as opposed to just having a red curb. Okay, and now I'm going to move on. And this is another fairly lengthy letter. I'll see if I can get through it in 2 minutes. So this is from another Glen Ellen resident, Deborah Nitasaka, who lives on Mound Avenue. And she was unable to speak at the last meeting because she wasn't able to unmute herself. So this was intended to be comments for Scott Orr from Permit Sonoma, but we'll pass these on to Supervisor. Okay, here's her letter. Supervisor Gorin may remember my meeting with her in 2020 about a property adjacent to me. That remodeled home now includes a hillside loading dock, nothing like the proposed carport. That massive structure faces our home and is accessed from a new, quote, road excavated and paved in part on my land and designed to draw its stormwater through my property. The county did not require that a recorded land survey be done, and so the problem property owner did a property line best guess. The county did not require that a drainage plan be done by a licensed engineer. My engineer has provided me with a letter, which we have in hand, where he finds that a drainage plan was a must given the amount of excavation done to tear this road into the hillside. The county did not approve a paved driveway road, but signed off on the project anyway. Without requiring corrections that promise to wash out my driveway, the county has left me with a situation that threatens the integrity of my home, will wash out our unpaved road, and finally may well cause flooding of at least 3 homes west of mine, all sitting below the road grade. I want to know why the county does not have a process by which property owners like me can appeal the final approval of such projects. I fought this project, was in touch with Permit Sonoma many times. My concerns were minimized, ignored, and my calls were often not returned. Because there's no other way forward, the project I am citing has thus far cost me more than $10,000 in legal and engineering fees. Promises to cost me much more going forward unless Permit Sonoma is willing to step in and review the glaring problems of the project. Thank you for your time. I hope to hear back from you and from Scott Orr at your earliest convenience. Local property owners are entitled to be heard even after the county has signed off on a project. We need that process. Deborah Nitasaka. I did it. 2 minutes. Well, thank you to everyone that wrote in. And like I said, if possible, when people can, I think your personal comments are the most powerful, but I'm happy to read them if this is what works. Are there any other hands up, Hannah?
Yes, we have one more hand raised from the public, so I'll go
Okay.
ahead and unmute. This is for Minona. You should now be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 2 minutes.
All right, welcome, Minona.
Hi, Hannah and Arthur. Thank you. I just wanted to just make an announcement that Sonoma Ecology Center is organizing creek stewardship and cleanup days. And we have done several ones this summer and just wanted to put it out to the Glen Ellen community to let you know, and Kenwood, the Northern Sonoma Valley MAC communities, that we are looking at making this a more regular program of Sonoma Ecology Center and looking for involvement and input from the MAC and the communities of Northern Sonoma Valley. Currently, we are planning for a big cleanup day on September 18th, which is the annual Coastal Cleanup Day, and also organizing a bulky items pickup day with Recology. And I wanted to just announce this and see if there's anyone from the MAC or from Northern Sonoma Valley community that's interested in being engaged and involved, that they can reach out to us at Sonoma Ecology Center. We have an email set up for it. It's creek@sonomaecologycenter.org, or they can reach out to myself, Monona Haviland, or anyone that they know at Sonoma Ecology Center. And yeah, that's about it. I give over the rest of my time.
All right, thank you, Monona, and thank you for all your good work for the Valley and for the local environment. And I will see if I'm available that day. I'm going to look into participating. Okay, any other public comments, Hannah?
And I see no further hands.
All right, so I think we have an opportunity now for board members to comment on the public comments. I mean, I'll just say personally, I understand, even though I don't have go up Carquinez very often, I understand the issues there, and I drive by there all the time. I would support if I'm allowed just to do this, just personally, I would support something there. We can vote on it as a MAC at some point, but yeah, I think it's a important issue. Yeah, Councilmember Morgan. Oh, you're muted.
Muted, Angela.
I just wanted, am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
Arthur, so I wanted to second that. I also live in the area, drive by almost every day. I feel like traffic is increasing. That particular parking lot has shortened because of the way it was structured. So there are less parking spaces. And I think it's really daunting that 7 members of the community wrote letters. So obviously, this is something that really needs to be looked into, and something really needs to be done there. I'm with you on this also. I support this.
Great.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Morgan. Any other thoughts or comments from council members? Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Yeah, I think as an issue before the MAC, we may want to look at this from at least 2 perspectives, and that is the short-term remedy to act quickly on a specific item that's getting a lot of attention. But also, I think that we need to address, as through our traffic and safety ad hoc committee, to make sure that these kind of issues get looked at so that we can show that we're addressing this holistically and not in a piecemeal basis. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Newhouser. Yeah, and you reminded me, I was going to say if the members of the Transportation Committee would be interested in taking this on, I think that would be a good thing. We can, yeah, we can put you in touch with all the letter writers if you don't have their contact info. And the Transportation Committee is that Councilmember Eagles, Councilmember Cooper, and Councilmember Morgan. Yeah, Councilmember Cooper.
Yeah, what is our, how do we do it? I mean, do we have authority to investigate, ask questions, all that kind of stuff, and come back to the committee with a recommendation? Do we go to Supervisor Gorin's office? How do we, I don't know. I don't know how we would, proceed.
I have some thoughts, but I'll turn it over to Supervisor Gorin for to respond.
Thanks, Arthur. I think it's a good question, and that occurred to me as you were reading at least one or two of the letters that I had heard you read. And yes, indeed, I did have multiple conversations with Debbie Nidasaka about her concerns about the uphill construction and the drainage issues. I think it's important well, let me back up a minute. I'm not clear exactly, since I came in the middle of your conversation, about what the action is that you request. Are you requesting a stop sign at a certain location, or red painted curbs to limit parking? And both of those, a stop sign is somewhat problematic. It's very frustrating for me and everybody else, because
Can I break in,
TPW
Susan? I don't think, nobody's suggesting a new stop sign.
Okay, so what is the concern then? It's just a concern that there's a lot of parking, especially during the construction.
Well, and it's, yeah, Councilmember Morgan, go ahead.
So I actually talked to Deb Poole about this, and I believe the curb is already painted red, but people are still parking there. That is the problem, which is obstructing the view when people are coming to Carquinez, and they actually do want a stop sign, because in the past it was a bus zone, so no one parked there, and it's really problematic because people are parking there even with the red curb.
Well, Angela, did you mean you meant a no parking sign rather than a stop sign, right?
I'm sorry. Yes, no parking sign. Thank you, Arthur.
Okay, so thank you for that explanation, Angela. I really appreciate it. And let's Hannah and Ariel take this back to TPW. It's actually somewhat easy to have curbs painted red. It is actually somewhat easy to put a no parking sign, and it is enforcement can happen, does happen, but not on a regular basis, not as frequently as you would like to see it enforced. So, but it does take a number of months to, it's surprising to you and to me that to place no parking signs, it needs to be placed on a board agenda, which takes a number of weeks. Who knows why that is, but it is. And we routinely have those kind of locations for posting. And so let's explore the possibilities. I hear what you're saying. It's possible that this is a temporary phenomena during the construction, because guess what? I'm in my new house and there's just zillions of construction vehicles everywhere. Arthur will understand about that. So the parking impacts may be more severe now than in the future, but I absolutely, if it obstructs visibility, we need to work on that, either through enforcement or posting of signs. So we'll take that back. I know that Hannah and Ariel have taken note of that, and we appreciate you bringing that to our attention. That's exactly what the MAC is supposed to do.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Gordon. Yeah, Councilmember Cooper.
What do we do? My question was the ad hoc that's up on the committee. Do we need to do anything?
No, I think this particular request is actually pretty cut and dried and easy to understand. It's not a long range investigation, doesn't require a lot of conversation. So we'll take that back to TPW to figure out the best way of moving forward. But Jed, if you, since you are on that committee, we can certainly outreach to you, actually to all of the MAC members, and say, this is what we found and this is the way we're proposing to move it forward. So I thank you. I think this is pretty easy to deal with.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you both. Any other comments on the public comments? Actually, I have a question for Supervisor Gorin as far as Debbie Nidasaka's letter about the drainage problem on her property. What would be the, I'm not totally clear what the role for the MAC might be in that situation.
The role of the MAC is rather limited. You can raise this as an issue and maybe invite Permit Sonoma back to explain again, how properties are permitted and the evaluation that they need to go through in order to be permitted, especially as it relates to drainage. The rule is that a property, no matter what happens, is not allowed to drain on or through another person's property. Now, does that mean that we're not going to have significant rain events where runoff is everywhere? Probably not. But if it occurs on a regular basis, and especially if it incurs damage on the neighboring property, it's probably a civil litigation issue. But I think it's a good question, and maybe we can take that back to Permit Sonoma and have a response to the MAC coming forward about how that has been addressed, answered, responded to, because again, Debbie has raised that with Permit Sonoma a number of times, and I understand her concerns in that hilly terrain. She and others would be concerned about potential runoff.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. All right, yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Yeah, regarding the construction issue, this was addressed at length in our last meeting about ministerial projects. And this is inherently problematic in that without information, neighbors do not know what's going on even next door. So it's really incumbent upon individuals to talk to neighbors and to reach out to them and to ask for, you know, what they're doing and what their plans are, and to even look at their plans. Because the last thing you want is to have to enter into a lawsuit with a neighbor that is going to cost you a fortune,
Right.
as Deborah mentioned. And it's just sad to see this happening. And so until there are some significant changes in the way the permitting process works, and I'm hoping that that can be revisited in the sense that the county should be have some means by which to disseminate information. And they do that, but only in certain zoned areas. And so the rest of us in our rural residential areas are pretty much up to the whims of our neighbors and their plans and their ministerial projects. So we got to reach out. And I think that having a forum like this, we could promote the idea of just being neighborly, you know, reaching out, talking to neighbors, finding out what they're doing, because you can work these things out. And if someone's building above you, oh, you know it's going to have an impact, whether it be drainage or bank stability. Anyway, I could go on and on, but you know, maybe that's a role for the MAC, is just to promote the concept of communication and a preventative means to circumvent problems.
And Mark, I appreciate your comments, and we, those of you living in Glen Ellen, Kenwood, love the fact that you know your neighbors, and it's very easy to communicate with them and to know the intentions. And it's not always the case, especially as people come into the communities, building sometimes very large homes, and have absolutely no interest in communicating or resolving issues with the neighbors. Sadly, that is the way it is. And I agree with you. I think it would be much easier if people would work together and say, oh, some runoff issues. So let me think about how we could avoid that, or how we could work together on that. It should be pretty easy to do, but in this case, I think it's gotten to a point where it's neighbor on neighbor controversy.
All right, thank you, Susan and Supervisor, and thank you, Councilmember Newhouser. And are there any other comments? Then I think it's now time for our monthly update from Supervisor Gorin.
Well, here I am again. You may have read in the newspaper that the board took the action yesterday to mandate vaccination for all county employees. We are the largest employer in the county, over 4,400 people employed by the county and its agencies. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone shall be forced into a vaccination, but it does mean that you'll have to show proof of vaccination to your supervisor, or take a weekly COVID test that would prove that you are COVID negative. Now, we had a group of folks at our meeting very vociferously objecting to any kind of mandate or vaccines whatsoever. And I don't necessarily want to get into a debate about the efficacy of vaccines. Full disclosure, I'm vaccinated. And at some point in the near future, I expect to get the booster shot, because that will be the next big effort at the county and with our medical providers. But one of the reasons why I'm late tonight is we had another health briefing. We are seeing increased number of COVIDs, especially among our unvaccinated folks in the jails, in our homeless shelters, and some alarmingly among staff at care facilities. So the health officer, Dr. Mace, has been in conversation with the superintendent of schools, Steve Harrington, and the sheriff, and a number of other providers. And we think we're going to be moving forward in considering how we require COVID tests for those upon entrance into the homeless shelters or the jails. And there may be some constitutional challenges with that, we'll see. But we're trying to figure out how we have regular, we know we already have mandated vaccinations among law enforcement personnel. We want them to be safe. Our sworn and unsworn folks working in the jails, our staff members working in the homeless shelters and care homes, and they're the ones that are being affected. And so often, too often, they've been vaccinated and yet they're contracting COVID because the Delta variant is so virulent and transmissible that it is just overcoming a lot of obstacles. I suspect you will see more employers around the Bay Area, as we've seen before, that are taking the lead and requiring that their employees be mandated to show a proof of vaccination and or have weekly COVID tests, COVID negative tests. And so that is the sign of our times. And I'm sad. I was hoping by this point in the pandemic, we would see that rainbow and everybody would be happy and we'd burn our masks and just go forward. And no, we are back in, we're not going to be doing a lockdown as we did before. The governor and the county board is very emphatic. We are not going to lock down, but we want everybody to exercise due caution and reach out to the folks that you know who are somewhat vaccine resistant and see if you can convince them to get vaccines as quickly as possible. You can go on SoCo Emergency. There are locations in the Valley that do have vaccines. We have adequate vaccines, unlike a lot of the rest of the world. And we're so fortunate to have that. But we also have increased testing in the Valley because we're seeing an uptick in testing. Let me see, what else can I report on? There's still rental assistance available. That was part of our COVID update. If you know anyone who's struggling, please contact our office and we can put you in touch with those providing rental assistance. So it is, we're still frantically concerned about those folks in danger of losing their housing. We do not want to see that happen. And I think I'll just end my report there, other than we're having a discussion today about community leaders tomorrow. And if you know folks in the community who might like to participate in the briefings every other week, please let us know. We'll add them to the list. And thank you, Chair Dawson, for agreeing to be on the community leaders meeting tomorrow, along with Chair Maite Aturi and Tim Friedman from the Sonoma Valley CAC, explaining to our community leaders the function of the 2 MACs and the CAC. So I expect you will generate a lot of good conversation. So thank you, Arthur.
All right, looking forward to it, Susan. Thanks. Any questions or comments for Supervisor Gorin?
And
go
one more update, Arthur. We know that you have prioritized community preparedness in the event of any kind of emergency. And we had a sort of a handshake ceremony today between the county and the school district at Altamira Middle School. We accepted the Connex, the shipping container full of cots and emergency supplies. And we looked at the storage area for the school district with 2 pallets of meals ready to eat, affectionately known as MREs. So I scored one of those packets and I'll be bursting it open just to see how edible it really is. But this is the beginning of good collaboration, communication. Map Your Neighborhood. Sonoma Ecology Center is part of that. The MAC is very much a part of that. And I'm so grateful that we have great volunteers, both at the North Sonoma Valley MAC and the Springs MAC, ready to dive right in there and help our community be prepared. We only had a few people lose their power last night and this morning. And wait, where's the wood? No fires, but we all smell the smoke today. So it takes us right back to where we were just a year ago. So thank you all.
Thank you, Supervisor. And yeah, thanks to our Emergency Preparedness Committee for really jumping in and looking at the possibilities and helping get the community ready for what we hope won't happen, but chances are it will at some point. Supervisor Gorin, I have one question. As far as the testing, I've heard something about home COVID tests, and that sounds very appealing, but I've never really done anything about it.
I'm not sure the county is passing those out, but I know that you can purchase them or pick them up at some drugstores and self-apply them and then put them in the little tube and mail them off. Many people do that because they would like rapid test results in case they're traveling or having a medical procedure. And Ariel and Hannah, if Karina were here, she would know exactly if in fact we have that. But so looks like Angela might have an answer for that.
Yeah, I just want to say I was exposed to COVID. My assistant got COVID. I wasn't feeling well, and my doctor told me to go to CVS and buy the COVID test, which I did. And I actually took it yesterday. You get the results in 15 minutes.
Wow.
You don't have to mail it out. But what they said was they are just running out. Everybody in town is buying them. So they're hard to come. And they will only give you one, but there are 2 tests in there, so you can save it for another time.
Thanks, Angela. I really appreciate the information, and that is good news. I'm a little concerned they're running out of tests. It means that there are a lot of people nervous about exposure to COVID. We don't want that, which is why we need to encourage as many people as possible to get vaccinated.
Well, if I can just add that the rapid tests, the county isn't doing those anymore because they're less accurate. And that you're supposed to follow them up with the PCR test, which is the one that takes a while to get your results back. So it's good for peace of mind, and they're not as accurate if you're not symptomatic, and they are more accurate for surveillance testing. So if you're doing like one or 2 a week, that can be more accurate. But you're supposed to get the other test after you take the rapid test as well.
Thanks, Ariel.
Yeah, not perfect, but yeah. Yes, Councilmember Handren.
So I have some concerns about the relatively low vaccination rate in the Glen Ellen zip code. And I haven't looked at that in a couple of weeks, but I reached out to the health clinic asking if there's any way we can somehow try and encourage people in our area. We're much less vaccinated than our surrounding zip codes. And I'm wondering if there's any targeted action being taken for that purpose?
I don't know of any action that the county is taking to target that, but I'm all ears. What should we be doing?
That's a good question. I've been thinking about that a lot, and I don't know. Yeah.
It is, and I know Jay Gamble often sits and lurks on our meetings. And so, Jay, if you're listening, go ahead and do a little investigative reporting, or Melissa Dowling, and maybe write an article and maybe interview some folks. Why aren't you going out to get the vaccination? Although people don't necessarily want to be publicly identified about that. And there are multiple reasons why people are not wanting to receive the vaccination. Some ridiculous and some legitimate. We heard a lot of really ridiculous things yesterday. Actually, someone said that they heard a friend of theirs asking parents to sign their child into the school when they were dropping them off for the first day of school. And the parent said, "Oh no, I won't sign that. And I will ask you not to mess around with my child's DNA." It's like, what? So she did sign the form, but she wrote, "Do not mess with the DNA."
Sounds like maybe that's already happened to the parent. I don't know.
So it is a lot of misinformation out there. And the more that you and I can be out there talking about it, posting about it, and letting people know that more often than not, the hospitals are filling up with COVID patients. 97% are unvaccinated. I don't want them to suffer serious health issues when a vaccination could help them, protect their families. So let's keep being out there and talking about it.
Just a quick follow-up. Does the county have any information on the demographics of those people who are unvaccinated, their age or anything like that?
No, we really don't, but we do have statistics. Well, overarching in the county, we do have statistics demographically about the percentages of those folks who are vaccinated and those folks who are not. And it doesn't mean they're resisting, it just means that they're not vaccinated. So we can give you that information, and maybe Ariel, you can, well, if you go on to the board meeting yesterday, there was that, but we had a couple of slides that might really address that, and maybe we can send that slide deck to you, or a couple of the slides from that. But we don't have a breakdown of Glen Ellen, the percentage and the demographics of the folks in Glen Ellen who are vaccinated and who are not.
All right, thanks. Any other comments? Yeah, Councilmember Morgan.
Hi, sorry I feel like I'm talking too much today, but Supervisor Gorin, before you got here, Alice Horowitz spoke about an article that was published in the Press Democrat, where they submitted a draft appeal for downgrading of housing units. And it went from something like 3,800 to 1,900. I don't have the exact numbers, but that it is unsustainable. And Alice is not able to speak now, or isn't speaking, but I was wondering, she was really interested in your comments, and I wonder if you might comment on that for us, or if you have any thoughts.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what article she's referring to. We do have state requirements that we must provide a certain number of parcels with the appropriate zoning to handle building for the units that have been assigned to us. Now, what she might be referring to is the fact that the county has been allocated by ABAG a certain number of the unincorporated areas have been allocated a certain number of units that the county must provide land for, at least land zoned for those units. And David Rabbit, as former president of ABAG, voted no on that because we believe in city-centered growth. The growth should be covered and really incorporated within the urban growth boundaries of the cities. And so the same thing is how that's a microscopic way of looking at it. A macroscopic way, we're having the same issue throughout the Bay Area, and historically, San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose have absorbed the lion's share of the growth for the Bay Area. And so we can thank them for building those units and creating housing for so many people, so many of our workforce especially, but affordable housing for sure. And there is a little caveat. They also get the lion's share of the transportation dollars because we've made the policy decision to link housing and transportation. So if we're concerned about our roads and not enough money to really beef up our transit as much as we would like, it's because we don't grow very fast, or and especially in Sonoma Valley. So we are at the short end of the stick for transportation dollars. They get it more often than not. And Santa Rosa has been really addressing and accepting growth in a very large way. But we see the building in Rohnert Park for sure. Petaluma, you see a lot of building along the freeway edges, and we thank them for that. That's where a lot of our workforce lives. In fact, it's where a lot of our workforce lives in Santa Rosa. That's one reason why Highway 12 is congested, because our workforce comes from Santa Rosa, but also from Napa and Solano County, Lake Mendocino County as well. And that's just the story of our lives. So is that what Alice is referring to, that we should appeal the housing numbers that have been assigned to us? And we have done that.
Thank you, Supervisor. Yes, Councilmember Newhouser.
Well, yeah, just to clarify, I think Alice's concern was that when we had our PRMD spokesperson in our last meeting, that there was no mention of the appeal that had been submitted by PRMD, questioning those numbers and asking for a reduction in those numbers. And even though there were several comments from other citizens about the sustainability, the carrying capacity questions, and also the disproportionate impact to unincorporated areas expecting to fulfill these ABAG requirements. And so I think she was concerned that, why wasn't that mentioned? Why didn't our PRMD representative mention this appeal and what their thoughts were around the rationale for the appeal?
I'm the alternate representative for ABAG, but I never go to the meetings because David Rabbit always goes to the meetings. But I do receive their newsletters, and at the last meeting, they talked about the process by which they would address and respond to the 22 appeals by various jurisdictions, including many of the jurisdictions in Marin County. And traditionally not been supportive of affordable housing or housing in general. I suspect that Permit Sonoma didn't mention that because it's unlikely that ABAG would uphold the appeal. I think that they will say, county, cities, up to you. This is the number of units that you need in order to share in the responsibility of providing housing, especially for your workforce. And you can figure out how to make that happen. But realistically, I think our larger cities will absorb a lot of that growth, and the county will lag somewhat in the production of housing. However, we do see a couple of opportunities in Sonoma Valley One is the Sonoma Developmental Center. And no, I'm not advocating 3,000 units be built on the SDC, but there will be some number of units there, more than 2, probably more than 100. And the Hannah Boy Center is the land across the street from the Hannah Boy Center. They've been talking about developing there for now, I think 5 years. So don't hold your breath on that one, but I suspect they may be moving forward in the next year to propose a sizable number of units, whatever sizable is. Again, more than 100, probably less than 1,000. So both of those areas, I think, will have an impact on Arnold Drive. And we've already had conversations within the county about what kind of traffic improvements, potentially more roundabouts we can put on Arnold Drive to slow the traffic down. And I would, and I'm going to be looking for planning grant money for some traffic analysis and maybe traffic calming and road improvements through the village of Glen Ellen, because I think at some point SCC will develop and we want to connect it more cohesively with the larger village. And how do we make it, how do we create those safe, walkable linkages?
All right, thank you, Supervisor. Any other comments? All right, just a time check. We're 1 hour in at this point, so but good conversations. So the next item is the drought awareness yard signs.
Sorry, through the chair, we didn't open for public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So any public comments on the supervisor?
And Arthur,
Okay.
after the public comment, I'm still in the process of trying to dig out the various boxes for my office. So I may end my participation after the public comment right now.
Okay, understood. And you're back in your house. Congratulations.
Yes, that's a good thing. I'm staying there. I'm not exactly living there yet.
It's a process.
Yes.
All right, any public comments on the supervisor's update?
I'm seeing one hand raised at this time, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Are you guys seeing the timer slide?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm not sure what that is about. I'm having some technical difficulties here, so I will just do the timer on my phone. And I will just let our commenter know when the 2 minutes are up. So this is for Alice, and I apologize for that. You should now be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, welcome, Alice.
Yeah, hi. So, yes, thank you. Yes, Mark, you summed up my concern very accurately. I was curious as to why we didn't talk about that. The appeal last month when we were actually talking about everything that had to do with the appeal. So, and yes, I hear you, Susan, and I understand it's an appeal and the likelihood of it being approved might be low. But I still think, you know, it is important to have those discussions, because when you read the appeal, it makes a wonderful argument against sprawl, against building in the WUI, against overloading our roads so that we can't evacuate in case of disaster, against, you know, overuse of water and limited resources. One thing in the appeal that I do think is missing, and I really do stress to everybody, you really need to read this document, it's fascinating, is the lack of any sort of reference to the environment, to wildlife, about fragmented habitat. I mean, it's just all about, well, if we have sewer, if our roads are good enough, but there's really nothing referencing the animals, the plants, the wildlife corridor. And I just think that that is a shame. But yeah, it's a fascinating document. I suggest everybody read it, and hopefully some of those numbers for unincorporated Sonoma County will be cut. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice.
Thanks, Alice.
Hannah, would it be possible to post that appeal on the MAC website? Just for,
Yeah, I can look into that.
okay, thanks.
And there are no further hands raised.
Okay, great. So now we're going to move on to drought awareness yard signs. So we're going to discuss the
Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Thank you,
evening.
Supervisor. Have a good night. So Hannah's going to share, for screen share works, an image of yard signs. And we're supposed to talk about how many signs do we want, and how do we plan to distribute them, and what will we do with them exactly.
And through the chair, I also wanted to mention we have Paul Piazza here from Sonoma Water to answer any questions if you have.
Okay, great. All right, so there we go.
Worked that time?
It works, yeah. Hannah, are these, it's great, they're bilingual. Can you get a sign with English on one side and Spanish on the other, or is it two separate signs?
I will let Paul jump in if I'm wrong, but I believe they're front and back, English and Spanish.
Sure, Hannah, thank you. And good evening, everybody. Appreciate your willingness to let me join and discuss this outreach opportunity. They are double-sided, Spanish and English. I just took two signs and took a picture of each just to get the message across that they had that ability to communicate in two languages.
Great. They look good. Thanks for joining us, Paul. Anybody else have questions about the signs? Yeah, Councilmember Eagle.
Is the website also translated, or is there an English-Spanish version of the website?
So the current iteration of the partnership's website does not have Spanish translation, but the good news is that as of Monday, we're completing a year-long project to upgrade the partnership's website. That transition's happening late Sunday evening. We'll do a little QA, QC to make sure all of the bells and whistles came through with that. And then it should be live Monday. And that new website does have the ability to translate not only in Spanish, but a variety of other languages as well, using some of the more up-to-date translation tools for websites that are built into that site.
Thanks. Any other questions?
One more?
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to do this, Chair Dawson, but will you refresh on what we're kind of determining tonight more precisely for context? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm totally clear on this, but I think we're deciding how many signs we might ask for from the county, and then how they're going to be distributed. So was there, Angela, I kind of remember you were behind this. Do you want to tell us a little more about it?
Well, I just recommended that we do signs because I saw them in Bolinas like 3 or 4 months ago, and just proposed it at one of our meetings, and then the water agency took it on. I don't know anything about how they distributed the signs, but my personal feeling is, I think places like fire stations and libraries and even maybe churches could give them out. Also, the Glen Ellen Forum, I think, is a great outreach opportunity for us. That's just sort of off the top of my head.
Kenwood Press Office.
Kenwood Press Office, yeah. Marshall's Garage.
Yeah.
The store, the local, grocery store, that would be a great spot. I'm assuming the signs are free, or are they?
So for clarification, the bulk of the signs were distributed to Sonoma Water's contractors. So in your area, Valley of the Moon Water District received a number. as did the city of Sonoma. We did, suggest guidelines for how they might want to deploy them, many of which you covered, Councilmember Morgan, but really left it up to the cities that took possession of the signs as to how they want to make those available to their customers. We do have a number that we can make available to the MAC, and we would leave it to you how you would like to make them available to constituents in the areas that you represent. We have, done some marketing to make people aware that they are available to the public for anybody who wants to take advantage of the ones that are here at the office. They're available at no cost. If you show up during regular business hours at our 404 aviation facility. But again, happy to provide some for your organization to distribute also.
So I guess, yeah, Councilmember Handren.
So this might be, so I'm giving a presentation at the Rotary Club in a couple of weeks. Maybe I can bring some signs to the meeting to distribute there. Is it for individual use on people's lawns? Is that what we're talking about?
So again, we're not really dictating how people want to deploy them. I think that's certainly the more common approach. But as a former city employee that ran retail water conservation programs, I know that I use them very effectively in locations that were owned properties of the city, but were major traffic ingress and egress points for subdivisions and other locations where you knew they were going to get a lot of visibility. That sort of helped alleviate any of the concerns that sometimes get raised about a new sign showing up that people might see as unsightly. When the property was owned by the city, we had full authority to use them to our advantage. So again, if you have organizations, whether NGO and community groups that you're reaching out and talking to that are interested in taking on some of the signs to distribute to their membership, I think that's an excellent opportunity to get the messaging out. Or if you have other ideas, again, we're leaving it up to those that are interested in taking them over to deploy.
Councilmember Morgan.
So Arthur, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I would be happy to spearhead this project and work on trying to get the signs out to the community, and maybe work with Melissa Dowling with the Kenwood Press. I know she's really connected with the forum, and I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, that's great. I was just thinking this is a good outreach for the MAC. So so if you want to spearhead that, and we'll support you. The outreach committee can support you in whatever way, if any ways are needed. Can give you some brochure or leaflets about the MAC if you want to pass those out with the signs. That sounds great. Yeah.
How do we actually physically get the signs?
Councilmember Morgan, if you just want to come to some idea of the quantity and work with Hannah or Ariel to communicate that to me, I think in our communications, we can work out a way to get those into your possession.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or thoughts on the Save Water signs? I like what's developed so far, so I'm fully behind what's being proposed, but anybody have any other comments?
Chair Dawson, if I may, since I'm here tonight and wanted to take an opportunity at a public meeting and for the benefit of your service area, just to give you a heads up about a couple of events that are in the near term. Many you may have already heard about, but this Saturday, we're hosting our second Drought Drop-By event. It's a 3-county event, as it was in early June that we hosted the same event successfully, to distribute drought kits free to the public. The kits contain water efficient shower heads, faucet aerators, there's little dye tablets to check your toilets for leaks, there's a 5-minute shower timer, a hose nozzle, an automatic shutting off hose nozzle, so you don't just set the hose down and let it run, and a variety of other information about tips and ways to save water, some of the available programs that people can take advantage of for additional savings. So again, that's occurring this Saturday from 8 to 12 a.m. Information about the locations is available on the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership website, which I'm happy to post a link to the website in the chat. You had it displayed nicely. The URL was on the bottom of the sign there briefly, but savingwaterpartnership.org will get you to the website where you'll see information about the drop by event. In addition to that, there is still time to sign up for the Saving Water Challenge, which has been occurring since the beginning of July, and we chose to extend through the end of August. The challenge includes a list of 31 different ways people can take a pledge and sign up to save water, and enter into a drawing that offers some pretty great water saving prizes, including brand new high efficiency clothes washer, high efficiency toilet, a weather-based smart controller. If you're not familiar with the company called Flume that produces and offers home water monitoring devices, if you have a municipal metered connection, a Flume works very well to provide an online platform for you to easily monitor your water use, and a variety of other prizes as well. So just wanted to draw your attention to those events and to the partnership's website where you can get more information about those.
All right, thank you, Paul. Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Yeah, Paul, thanks for broaching the subject of your tips and prizes. A couple of questions. One has to do with the contest. Is it a reduction from your current usage, or is it a reduction to a certain level of water usage per capita? And then my next question, which is going to be a little bit more challenging, has to do with the conflict between water saving tips like mulching, which is one of the top tips, other than appliances and everything else, and the conflict with fire prevention, and the fact that people are removing everything down to bare earth, cutting back vegetation, creating more exposure. I mean, how do you square this inherent conflict between the fire prevention and trying to save water? I know people whose houses are 20 degrees hotter now, and they're having to water more because of so much vegetation removal and removal of mulch and leaves.
Thank you for those questions, Councilmember Newhouser. I'll take them one at a time. So in terms of the challenge itself, we had done a similar challenge back in the 2015 drought that did set a particular water saving goal. It was referred to as the 20-gallon challenge. But for this particular event, there is no goal set. It's merely a list of tips that people can pledge and some recommendations in terms of how much water those typical actions can save. And that's in recognition of the various different requirements to cut back in our region, varying from Healdsburg to Santa Rosa to your area and on down to Marin, which geographically, even though very close, have very different water reduction restrictions in place due to the severity of their supply issues. So we didn't set a specific target. As long as you sign up to take the pledge, you're entered into the contest if you're one of the customers of the partnership utilities that are sponsoring the event.
And then what? It's just a kind of a lottery to see who wins of all the people who sign up?
Correct. It's a drawing. Yeah.
Okay.
Got
it.
And then regarding the more difficult question about the use of mulches, or particularly wood-based mulches, we do a lot of work with the fire organizations in Sonoma County in collaboration with Master Gardeners, Sonoma Ecology Center, to communicate fire safe practices and how the use of organic mulch products can still be used effectively and safely at your home As long as you're adhering to, the 0 to 5 feet principle, where you've got no materials up against the foundation that are flammable, that you're doing your additional practices to keep dead and dying material out of your landscape material. And then, in discussion with some of the county fire officials, the recognition is that, when you utilize some of these organic mulch projects, particularly if they've gone through an initial decomposition process, which is a fairly common undertaking for the commercial landscape supply companies to do, that many of those products would not be as flammable as, just straight up chipped wood would be. That decomposition process does lend to their ability to resist outright flammability. The discussions that we've heard from the fire officials is that they tend more to smolder for a period of time than outright just catch fire. And there is an appropriate use for those in terms of their distance and application that we do suggest people adhere to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Do we have any comments or questions from the public?
I am seeing one hand raised. So this is from our commenter on our next item, but let me go ahead and share my screen or try and do that again. All right.
So, welcome, Chief Acker.
And for Chief Acker, you should now be able
Sorry.
to unmute for public comment.
Welcome, Chief Acker.
Thank you, Chair Dawson, and thank you, Hannah. Yeah, I just wanted to add a quick comment to this, is that, the Sonoma Valley Fire District is in full support of all the water conservation measures. And very early on, I believe in April, we implemented our water conservation program and measures, which sadly, didn't take a whole lot of layers of dust to remove to bring back up from where we've been just a couple of years ago. But my biggest comment that I wanted to make was if whoever is leading this, if that's Councilmember Morgan, we would be happy to be a recipient of signs at any of our fire stations. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me or just swing by the stations and let them know that that we're part of the program. And I'll be sharing this information. If this information is going to the Springs MAC, we can share that as well next week, because I'll be on that meeting as well. So thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone for the important efforts.
Great, thank you, Chief Acker. Any other public comments?
And I see no further hands.
Okay, well now I'll, this is sort of backwards, but I'll now introduce Chief Acker, who's good to talk about, give us an update on the fire district and the fire season. And thank you, Chief, for all your work to protect people and property in the valley and the environment too.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair Dawson. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to join the North Valley MAC. I know I've talked to a number of the members here. There's a number of familiar faces, but very pleased and happy to be here and to share with you some updates. I understand you've gotten a number of updates through maybe Chief Belloc and others. So I'm going to stay kind of focused tonight on a couple of things. The first one is the 2021 fire season, the current fire season that we're in. As I can imagine that everybody's reading in the news, it's a very, very impactful, serious fire season. We're seeing, the single largest fire in the history of California, the Dixie Fire, that continues to devastate communities and exhibit fire behaviors that we typically do not see in August. We've also had 2 other incidents going over the last couple of days. One is the Caldor fire in that's threatening the community of Pollock Pines. And today we had a incident in Lake County, the Cache fire, which also impacted homes and the community of Clear Lake. So while we have been fairly fortunate here within Sonoma County and Sonoma Valley so far, we have had some smaller significant incidents here. We have had the vegetation fire on Grove Street a couple of months ago. We've had a number of fires on the Montini Preserve, just north of the city of Sonoma. And we're taking active measures along with the police department, CAL FIRE, and homeless services to address some homeless encampments that we believe at least contribute to the possibility of those fires. So back to what we're doing here with the 2021 fire season. I'm one of 4 operational area coordinators for fire resources within the county. And we take a very active, very proactive approach to making sure that we have adequate resources to respond when we have weather events like we experienced last night with the red flag warning and the PSPS event. So in addition to many resources that our county has committed to the Dixie fire, as well as the Caldor fire, we upstaffed an additional 8 fire resources in the county last night. And that's in addition to the, the crews that are already on duty at each of the fire stations. So this is additional supplemental staffing that we bring up. And thankfully, we did not have any fire incidents within Sonoma County last night as a result of the red flag and PSPS. But we did launch that strike team or that task force of 8 units to the Cache Fire to help out our neighbors in Lake County today as that community was losing homes. And as I understand, there were civilian injuries as well. So it is a very serious fire season. We are doing our best in response, and we are also doing our best in other measures with vegetation management, which I know was another topic that the MAC wanted an update on. So what we've done, I can only speak for us. I don't have the details. I apologize. I do not have the details for the Kenwood Fire District. I know they are an active participant in the vegetation management inspection program with the county, but I can only speak to the details of what we've done in Sonoma Valley. And that is our vegetation management program has focused again this year on the Springs area, oftentimes referred to as the Maze. And that is that area of former, vacation cabins and whatnot from, the early 1900s that on the east side of 12, kind of east of the Mission Inn or the Fairmont now, Mountain Park, Hillside, that kind of area. And we've done about 300 inspections in that area. We have gotten a phenomenal response from the community, both in terms of their eagerness and acceptance of the program, as well as the very hard work that they've done to make that area more fire safe and their homes and properties more defendable in the event of a fire. So we're very proud of that. We have completed the first round of inspections, and we are almost done with completing the follow-up inspections. Also in the vegetation management defensible space kind of arena, our partners, CAL FIRE, continues to do their LE 100 defensible space inspections in the state responsibility area out of the Glen Ellen station. I apologize, I do not have details on where they have been yet this year, but the Glen Ellen station covers the Kenwood area, the Glen Ellen area, the Mayacamas area. So they've been in and amongst all of those areas doing their inspections. I also want to note a couple of real success stories with when we look at vegetation management and creating defensible space through the PG&E Vegetation Management Grant Program. the Mayacamas Fire Safe Council was awarded $250,000 to do roadside clearances. And they have done just a phenomenal job of clearing along Trinity and Cavedale roads. That's been led by, I'm sure many of you know her, Lisa Warner. She was the chair of the Mayacamas Fire Safe Council since its inception. And she wrote the grant and has seen this project through to its completion. We've also got strong work being done by the Grove Street Fire Safe Council to improve that exit or evacuation route along Grove Street. And then finally, I'm very proud of our district, Sonoma Valley Fire District, and our Fire Marshal Trevor Smith, who put in for a grant for a chipper program. And so very proud of the fact that we now are the owner of a chipper and are in the process of implementing a chipper program that's going to be offered to residents within our service area. The chipper program grant is for approximately $100,000, and we anticipate being able to have this program up and running by early next year, well in advance of next fire season. A couple other items I wanted to touch on. One is, I know previously the MAC talked a little bit about emergency preparedness, and I would like to offer up again that the Sonoma Valley Fire District, as well as the Kenwood Fire District, offer the SCOPE program, training program for residents. We have done that collaboratively a number of times. I know that, with COVID, it's another challenge, and, we reasonably logically press the pause button on, in-person classes for that program during COVID, but we have a lot of resources available, and we're really excited to be able to continue to reach out and inform and educate the community on emergency preparedness. I will say that our lead person on this program is Captain, he serves both districts, Ben Golson. He is a captain paramedic with the Sonoma Valley Fire District, has served us for, nearly 30 years. And he is also the assistant chief with, as a volunteer, he is the assistant chief with the Kenwood Fire District. So Benny does a wonderful job with SCOPE. He's very personable, he's very knowledgeable, and very happy to have him in that role and make him available and his team available to come to provide any sort of emergency preparedness training that the MAC would like to pursue. And then lastly, I know another topic that was kind of asked about in terms of an update on, and I don't want to speak out of turn because Vice Chair Damon Doss may have even more information on this than I do, but another role that I am in is I serve on the Fire Service Working Group, which is a subcommittee of the Sonoma County Fire Chiefs Association, and we advise the fire ad hoc of the Board of Supervisors, and we are working diligently, have been for months, on creating a new countywide sales tax to support fire services within the county. And while it doesn't specifically mandate consolidations, the funding that will become available through that measure will not only improve fire services throughout the county, but it will allow for consolidations to occur where partners are willing and interested in pursuing that. So with that, the last note that I wanted to make on consolidation, and this is where Vice Chair Doss may want to share more information, but I know the Kenwood Fire District is in talks with the County Administrator's Office about receiving ongoing funding from the county in order to stabilize their budget right now, immediately, and with the hopes of getting out of deficit spending. So that I think that's about the end of my report. I think one last thing I wanted to touch on just come to my mind is touching back on vaccinations and testing. I also want to share with everyone that the Sonoma Valley Fire District, both our career and volunteer elements, which total over 100 personnel, we are over 90% vaccinated. So while we continue to strongly encourage those that aren't to strongly consider, I think we're largely successful in that arena. And in terms of testing, we do have a mandate now coming into play September 1st that all healthcare workers, including firefighters, EMS workers, and law enforcement personnel, if those that are not vaccinated are going to have to be tested weekly. So I've experienced the same thing that some of the other members have mentioned about the scarcity of the testing, and know that the counties through their public health and the public health lab are working on testing sites. And to that end, I just received an email tonight from Sonoma County about continued testing opportunities and locations for any resident in Sonoma County. And that came out via both Spanish and English. And I would imagine that Hannah or Ariel also received that, and that maybe that could be pushed out to the MAC as well. And that's the end of my report, but very happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, Chief Aker. Yes, Vice Chair Doss.
Thank you, Chief. Would you please just address the role of mutual aid and how that works, and the coordination of the districts and the different departments through REDCOM, and so folks understand how we cover the county when there's a flare up like that 50-acre fire in Santa Rosa last week?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, there's a couple of levels here. First of all, we have what's called automatic aid, that through our computerized dispatch system, if we were to have a fire incident in Glen Ellen, for example, the Kenwood station would be automatically dispatched to help out, as they're one of the closest resources. So would the potentially, depending on where it is, so would the Sonoma County Fire District engine out of Bennett Valley, as well as Sonoma Valley's resources in Glen Ellen and Agua Caliente and others. Once we get past the automatic aid, we have alarm assignments, and as the alarm assignments grow, they're already pre-programmed into the computer-aided dispatch system. So, for example, when the Llano Road fire hit, it received an initial dispatch of a wildland response, and then very quickly, almost immediately, REDCOM was punching out, dispatching, the next alarm assignment for that area. And that continues. Every agency has alarm assignments built out at least to third or fourth alarm. And then if it goes past that, then REDCOM also via the computer-aided dispatch system can, if there's an order for additional resources, the next 5 closest engines or water tenders or chief officers will show up in the CAD and will be dispatched upon their request. Additionally, we have our partners in CAL FIRE. Even in the Llano Road fire, which is a local responsibility area fire and doesn't receive an immediate CAL FIRE dispatch, our CAL FIRE partners are very willing and able to respond, and they get dispatched as well on a significant incident like that very, very quickly. If that fire was to go even further, we would get resources from neighboring operational areas. So that would be operational areas, a fancy term for the neighboring county. So we would get resources likely from Marin, Mendocino, Napa County coming into Sonoma to the incident. as well as to potentially backfill stations to make sure we're able to continue to provide service to all the communities within Sonoma County. Does that answer your question, Vice Chair Doss?
Exactly. I just wanted folks to understand how coordinated and how quickly it kicks in. Last week when they had the 50-acre fire in Santa Rosa, which was out by Mono Road, right? Or somewhere in that area. 2 engines were dispatched from Kenwood, not to fight the fire, but to fill the holes for those who did fight the fire. And so that there were people on board and ready to go. And during the 2017 fire, there was a unit from San Francisco parked in Plaza Park in Kenwood, across next door, right in front of the Kenwood Community Church there at Plaza Park, to protect that area. And when conveniently there was a water hydrant, and they were ready to go in case the fire, which did take out 132 homes in Kenwood, but it was on the other end of the village, not on this end of the village where they were. But just how they work, and it's always been. I did not even know about Redcom and its capacity until I joined the fire board. So just thank you for that. Just a quick comment to Chief's comments in regards the Kenwood Fire Protection District is very much looking at and working with the county for additional dollars to erase the deficits, and also to consider consolidation, which we would, I think, would be a great advantage to the services within Kenwood. So a good example, though, of why there are deficits sometimes, because it's a red flag warning. We have 5 or 6 firefighters on duty today. Normally we have 2 full-time because we're a 2-0 station. Occasionally we'll be 3-0 with a volunteer, but today, because of red flag warning, we had 5. Well, that's an additional expense that's not necessarily considered a budgetary item. Doesn't mean we don't budget for events like this, but you never know how many of those we're going to have. If this is the only red flag we have in this fiscal year, okay, that'll be not a big deal financially, but probably that's not going to happen. So there are always challenges, especially for local independent fire districts. And so we are now the donut hole. We're surrounded by a consolidated fire districts in Sonoma and in Santa Rosa. So we're definitely looking at the possibility and the advantages, but that's a decision that's to be made in the next year or so regarding outcomes of elections, et cetera. And Chief Bellick will be here, I think, is it next month, Hannah, he's scheduled, or?
Yes, he's hoping to come in September.
So I'll let him address some of the other issues on the politics of the election, et cetera.
Chair, Vice Chair Doss, did you want to just inform the MAC about the vacancies on the Kenwood board?
Oh yeah, thank you. Well, doggone,
do they know?
We were three members on the board for years and years and decades, and then we expanded to 5, and now we're back to 3. One of our very, very senior members has retired, and one of our brand new members, who's only been with us about 4 to 6 months, had to make the decision to move out of the district. And as law would have it, if you want to be on the board, you have to live in the district. And so we're back down to 3. And so we are going to be soliciting. And Jed, there'd be a good opportunity for you there. So anyway, we're going to be looking to expand back to 5 and get a full board. Thank you for reminding me to do that.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the from council members before we turn it over to the public? Okay, Hannah, do we have any hands raised?
Yes, we do have 2 hands raised. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, and our first hand, this is for Ellen. You should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 2 minutes.
All right, welcome, Ellen.
Hi, thank you. I have a question for the fire chief. I had requested the Sonoma Valley Fire Authority to come in and check my property about a month ago. And because I lost over 70 trees in the Tubbs fire, and they're all still laying dead on my hillside. And I just have finished the work of everything that they advised me to do. And I wondered if there would be any time for anybody to come back and make sure I didn't miss anything, or to feel like at least somebody's listening to them.
Absolutely, Ellen. We thank you for reaching out to us, and also more for your work to make your property and your neighbors more fire safe. I will pass on. I'm sure that our folks have your contact information. I will tomorrow. I will reach out to them and ask them to get in contact with you to do a follow-up inspection. I know we're in the process, as I mentioned earlier, that we had completed our first round of vegetation management inspections, and we're working through our follow-up inspections. So I imagine that yours is in the follow-up stack, but I will definitely follow up and have them get back in contact with you and schedule a time to come out and do the follow-up.
All right, and our next commenter, this is for Alice.
Welcome, Alice.
Go ahead.
Still here, folks. So, thank you so much, Chief Aker. I really appreciate your report. And my question is there a means of requesting a property inspection for a property that is not mine and for which the neighbors might not be all that psyched to be inspected? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
So there's a number of layers of our program. The vegetation management inspection program is a program that we identify in coordination with the county properties, a target area of properties in a given year. Neither the county nor us has the ability to provide inspections to all of the properties within our service area. We do take voluntary requests from property owners to come out to their property to participate in the vegetation management program. To answer specifically your question about a neighbor's property, the best thing to do would be to go on to our website, svfra.org, and you will see under there in one of the drop downs, there's a weed and hazard abatement complaint form. And the best thing to do would be to fill out that complaint form online, and one of our inspectors will go out and check that property for fire hazards.
And there are no further hands in public comment.
All right, thank you. I have a question, actually, I forgot to ask during our previously, and that is there a minimum parcel size for the chipper program that's being instituted?
I don't know at this point. We're still developing the procedures and the target. My guess is that there are going to be some specific requirements. I mean, district staff is not going to be able to, cut trees and brush or haul them. It's going to be modeled after the current county program for the most part, where property owners are going to need to, cut and trim vegetation and then haul it down to the roadside. And then district staff would then chip that material and leave it in a pile right there at the roadside.
And possibly we can get several neighbors together, and do a joint.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that, right? In many ways, many hands make light work, as they say, and both for neighbors helping neighbors, as we've seen, it's very successful here in the Valley. But also for our crews, if we, stop a couple of different properties in a row, we're gonna be able to be a lot more effective that day and efficient that day than if we're, hopscotching, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. We'll keep that in mind as we yeah, as we move forward here.
Absolutely. And Chair, I'll be happy to share with the MAC here, the North Valley, as well as the Springs MAC. As soon as we get that program, the details of that program solidified, I'll be happy to share that so we can push that out to the communities.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that would be great. All right. I kind of jumped back in during public comment. Are there any last chance for public comments? Okay. All right. So let's move on to the protocols for approving MAC letters that Vicki and I worked on. We sent out the draft, and so we're presenting that to the MAC. And the basic idea here, this is a way, we're an advisory body, so we don't have any direct power, but hopefully we have some influential power. And it seems like having the ability to send out a letter that is basically approved by the whole MAC would be one of the more powerful ways to influence decisions about various things. So that's our intent, is to set it up so we can send out letters, like that. Hannah, do you have the letter available on screen?
Yep, I will share it right now. All right, are we all able to see that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I'm trying to think, how many, raise your hand if you've already had a chance to review this letter. Okay, just a couple of people, maybe half. Maybe what I'll do is I'm just going to read it out loud. I'll just read it paragraph by paragraph, and I'll pause. And if anybody has a comment or a question or a suggested edit, let us know, and then we'll. So the goal tonight is to edit these procedures to the point where we could say, okay, this feels like it's a good format, and then we'll vote on adopting them. And once we do that, then we'll have a mechanism for creating MAC letters. All right, so this is procedures for North Sonoma Valley Municipal Advisory Council letters. Okay, first paragraph, and I'll paraphrase this a little bit. So a MAC ad hoc committee would draft a letter about a community issue, concern, or opportunity that could be sent on behalf of the whole MAC, just like I've been saying. And you could also write in support of a current or pending efforts by county agencies and community organizations. So that was, in particular, I was thinking about like the, some of the emergency preparedness efforts that are going on, is we could write a letter that says, we support, like Councilmember Newhouser was, I think, looking for something like that a couple of months ago, just sort of a general vote of support. So, and other things might be, traffic concerns in Glen Ellen. It sounded like from what Supervisor Gorin said, that the situation at Carquinez and Arnold is probably simple enough that we wouldn't have to do a letter about it, but I could imagine maybe the transportation ad hoc might, do a letter that just highlighted, the top three issues in Glen Ellen right now, wherever those might be, the downtown crosswalk, Carquinez, Arnold, and maybe Badrone or wherever. So anyway, that was the idea of that first paragraph. Does that all make sense? Anything you'd add or change about that? Okay, actually, just give me a thumbs up if these sound good. Just give a thumbs up, and we'll move on to the next one.
Arthur, if I may.
Yeah, Mark.
Specifically, it was for fundraising. It was, you don't really address that, and I don't know if it should or not. And I apologize for not reviewing the whole thing beforehand, but the need for a support letter from the MAC was specifically for a grant proposal. And so that may be an example contained within this paragraph.
I mean, that was the intent, but we could add something about, current or pending efforts, including grant proposals by county agencies. Should we add that?
I don't know that we're ready to do that. excuse me, I didn't get recognized.
That's okay. Yes, Councilmember Eagles.
Yeah, I just feel like that was sort of part of, I know, Councilmember Newhouser, you weren't at that meeting, but I think that was part of the question. At what level is that okay for us to do? We have a budget, you know, and I think that in this instance will complicate tonight's discussion. So I would suggest that we kind of treat that separately than just writing a letter of support. But that's my thought. I'll welcome others' thoughts on this.
All right, thank you, Kate. Any other thoughts on that? I mean, I'd be fine leaving that, you know, to work that out later. You know, if it doesn't feel like it's going to impinge on impinges down the road. Mark, do you have a response, or what do you think?
That's the only example I can think of. So everything else is just hypothetical.
Yeah.
I mean, the only real request was for a letter of support for a specific grant proposal.
I mean, in
so
my mind, that comes
zero
under
attachment.
Current or pending efforts. You know, because an effort could be all kinds of things, fundraising effort, you know, whatever. So
Well, I think, for example, what we were speaking, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Councilmember Handren.
What we were speaking about earlier today, putting a no parking sign up, that could be an example of what this format would be used to write a letter of support for that position.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, I got the impression from Supervisor Gorin that we wouldn't, that she kind of got the message, but if nothing comes of this in a few months, I'd say, yeah, let's do a letter. Yeah, Councilmember Eagles.
And let me be clear, and maybe I need a clarification from Councilmember Newhouser. Certainly supporting, supporting something like a grant might be appropriate. I think I was confused that we were it was actually a grant process, and I think that's not what you're saying. You were saying you support another effort or a grant proposal that's separate from us. I'm not sure I'm asking the question very well, but is that true? In which case, maybe my objection is sort of silly. I misunderstood potentially.
I mean, that's how I'm thinking of it. Is you know, some community organization is writing a grant proposal for whatever, and a letter from the MAC supporting that effort would help them in raising funds.
If that's the case, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I misunderstood. My apologies. Yeah.
That's how I see it.
No, I think just for clarification, and I don't want to belabor the point here, because the proposal was actually being sponsored by a separate organization. However, we have stated objectives within the MAC emergency ad hoc to pursue these matters. So even though we're not the lead agency, we're a conduit and a partner for helping to get the proposal prepared. So it's a little bit muddy, but I think the way it's worded, now that I've thought about it some more, current or pending efforts, you know, by both county and NGO is fine. It captures the spirit of that without the specificity. So I'm fine with it. Move on, Arthur. So we can get through it.
All right. Okay, the next paragraph says ad hoc notifies county staff 2 weeks or more before the next MAC meeting so the letter can be placed on the agenda. And that's just how the MAC operates. So I don't think there's much to discuss there unless somebody disagrees. Okay, next one's letter is submitted before the next MAC meeting and distributed with the agenda for that meeting for review by council members. Which, you know, like, well, for this particular document, we didn't quite get this out in 2 weeks before, but it was on the agenda and then we got it out, you know, a couple days later. So, I mean, Hannah might disagree with this, but I think if it's within a range, if it's well ahead of the meeting, I don't think if the county staff knows there's going to be a letter proposed by, let's just say, transportation ad hoc, they put it on the agenda, and then transportation ad hoc gets the letter, you know, to the MAC members, you know, reasonably far ahead of time, a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. My sense is that's okay, but I don't know, Hannah, is that true, or it would be better if they're always done 2 weeks ahead of time?
I will let Ariel correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the latest it could be is 72 hours in advance of the meeting. But
Okay.
The more time
Right.
you give folks to read it is always good as well.
Yeah.
And Ariel will jump in if I'm incorrect.
Yeah, no, she's completely correct. Actually, the legal deadline is 48 hours ahead of time. We would love to give people more time than that. So Hannah and I had talked about this, that the latest the material should be to us in our hands is about noon the Friday before the meeting. So that gives us time to send it to everybody and make it ADA compliant and post it in the packet on the website to provide ample public notice. The farthest ahead of time, the better.
Okay. Do we need to put that in here? Do people feel do you want to state that those limitations, or are we good with just understanding them? And
it might be good to specify the parameters in the policy in case someone's trying to refer to it like in 6 months or something.
Okay, so what if we just add, let's keep it simple if this sounds good. Okay, distributed with the agenda for that meeting for review by council members no later than noon on the Friday before the next MAC meeting. Does that meet the meet your approval, Ariel?
That's fine with me.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Because meeting dates can change, it probably should be like 4 business days prior to the meeting, 4 or 5 days or whatever is.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yep. Also fine.
A minimum of 5 business days, or 2 weeks, or something like that. Between 5 business days and 2 weeks. I'll let you wordsmith it, but it just may be a little clearer.
Okay. Yeah. So Hannah, do you want to edit that right now? And just add that in.
Unfortunately, I cannot edit live. I just have a PDF here, but I can take note and edit it after.
Okay. Can we still vote on adopting this, even if we don't have the final version in front of us, as long as we're all on board with the changes?
I believe so, but I'll also let Ariel jump in if I'm incorrect there too.
I think that's simple enough. If we get into extensive edits, and we can't live edit it, but that makes sense. I think that's a simple change.
Okay, good. Okay, moving on. Supervisor's office assists with identifying recipients of various agencies. So, we don't know the county government as well as the supervisor staff does. So I think that would be a good help. We can come up with ideas, but also be directed to send it to various agencies. Thumbs up if that sounds good. Okay. At the monthly meeting, council members review the draft and recommend edits and changes. County staff edits the letter, making changes supported by the council. Straw votes held if needed. So thumbs up or comments? Okay. Can't see everybody's thumbs, but I can't see my thumb. Yes, Councilmember Eagles.
Thumbs up if we can do that. In other words, hopefully we can. Otherwise, it's going to protract this process. But we just talked about live edits aren't very easy, so I'm on board if we can do it. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think if we're set up that way, I think we can do it. I think it's just having the Word document.
Chair Dawson,
Councilmember Cooper.
Is it possible for us to get something like this before this kind of a meeting and go over it, submit our thoughts before, and come to this meeting with changes that people have submitted rather than do all this at the meeting?
What it should be, yeah, I mean, everybody should have gotten a copy of this,
No,
about 10 days ago.
but I mean, okay, yeah, right. But I guess my, again, limited understanding is we're not to do anything with it until this meeting. I'm saying, can we make change? Can we write changes in and give it back to maybe Ariel or you?
I would think that would, people could send suggested edits to Ariel and she can make or Hannah probably can make a version that shows the suggested changes, and then we can just vote on them when it comes up at the meeting.
Yeah, can we do that? That's my question.
Yeah, that sounds the most efficient way. And Hannah, any comments on that?
Yes, so to clarify, it was sent out with the agenda. You could prepare your changes that you want and then discuss them as a MAC together at the meeting. I might be misunderstanding.
Yeah, that's my question. Do we have to wait? Do we have to wait here to give them our input on changes, or can we give our input on changes to you before we even come together? And you can just show what different people have suggested here rather than.
Right.
Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I think I do. And I'm just, maybe I'll need some help from Ariel on this one too. I think if the ad hoc, if it was, not a quorum was and which I believe the ad hoc is who put this together, was working on changes together.
So that's where that happens.
Yeah. Ariel, I don't know if you jump in with anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. And sure, if everyone wanted to make changes in writing and send them back to Hannah, that would be fine. It would just be on how the chair wants to deal with that, right? So, I mean, we would have, if you want to send them back, that's fine. And then we can put up the different versions on the screen if that was what people wanted. But you do have to have the discussion at a noticed and public meeting where you're going to discuss this. But there are some ways to kind of to deal with it differently. We could have a Word document and be able to do live edits. I don't have it either. I also only have the PDF. We could have multiple versions of, there's different ways it can work at the meeting.
Okay, I'm just thinking of efficiency of time is all. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Councilmember Cooper. Yeah, and I think we're all interested in trying to make this as efficient as possible. Okay, let's see. Recipients. I think recipients are clearly identified. So obviously who are we sending the letter to? So everybody knows, who it's going out to. Thumbs up if people like that idea. On board, okay. Council invites public comment and considers further edits following the procedure above. So, we edit the letter and then we get public comments and see what the public wants, or if they want something different, and then we can decide whether or not to adopt those edits. And then let's see, and then we hopefully my picture of this is that we would come to the meeting kind of like we are today with something that's pretty close, that's in a draft. We would make some hopefully small changes in most cases. And then we would have a finalized letter that we could all vote on and say, we support this. And maybe not everybody will support it, but maybe, 5 out of 7 council members support a particular letter. And then that can be stated somewhere. But we have something we can vote on at the meeting. So it doesn't take several months to pull a letter together. Some of these letters, it would be great to be able to pull this off, within, a couple of weeks or a month at the most. And then if approved, the letter is sent to the recipients. So, and then I'm not quite sure how this works, and Hannah or Ariel, you can chime in here. Would it get sent through the supervisor's office? Do we send copies to local media? How would the letters actually get sent? Or would we send them? Would we just get approval and then send them?
I think it depends on the letter. It certainly depends on the circumstance. In Mark's example, council member Newhouser's example of wanting a letter of support from the MAC to include in a packet of a grant submittal that another agency was doing, he could just hand the other organization the letter once it had been voted on. If you're
Did
sending a
Ariel
letter,
disappear for everyone else too, or is it me?
oh, can you not hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Did you not hear what I said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it was to Transportation and Public Works, it would make sense for you to send it through our office, and we can send it and CC the chair and vice chair, for example, or the ad hoc. It depends on the letter itself.
Okay. So do we need to add something to that paragraph, just to say sent to recipients according to advice from the supervisor's office, or like, I'm not sure if I'll understand the difference between sending it through the supervisor's office and sending it directly from us, at least until we've done this a few times. Or how about just if approved, the sending of the letter is done as advised by the supervisor's office. So we might just let Susan know we want to do this, and she'll say, okay, yeah, just go ahead and send it, and we would do it. Is that good, Ariel? Thumbs up from MAC members if you like that idea.
Suggested wording.
Yeah.
If approved, letter is sent to recipients by North Sonoma Valley MAC, comma, ad hoc committee, or supervisor's office as appropriate.
Well, I think generally that sounds good, but the idea of this letter is not that they're from an ad hoc committee, they're from the whole MAC. And
it's a matter of who's sending it. It's still from the MAC. It's who's sending it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I thought that's what we were discussing.
Well, yeah, but okay. In my mind, we're talking about how do we send a letter that's approved by the MAC. So, I think it'll have more power if we say the advisory council, supports placing a no parking sign, at Carquinez and Arnold. If it's just the transportation ad hoc,
Right.
it's not a quorum. It's not the whole community necessarily, or at least it's not as, the ad hoc, well, I don't know Ariel, what are your thoughts on this?
I think there's a miscommunication. I think what Councilmember Newhouser is saying is that in the example I laid out where it was from his request, the chair of the ad hoc would provide the letter to the organization submitting the grant, but the letter would be from the whole MAC because that's what this policy is. So his suggested wording accounts for that by taking all of the possibilities, whether it's the chair and vice chair sending it, physically sending the letter that's from the whole MAC, or the lead on the ad hoc, because that makes sense, or the supervisor's office and looping in the MAC, that makes sense, because it's situational.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Mark, how do you want to word that?
I hopefully Hannah caught what I said the first time, but I just said, basically saying what it's already written there. The letter is sent to recipients by the North Sonoma Valley MAC, comma, the ad hoc committee, comma, or the supervisor's office, comma, as appropriate. But I do have another question as soon as you're finished with this item.
So are we good with that? Are people?
Yes.
So I'm not clear if people are good with that or not. Thumbs up if you're good with it, or shake your head. Okay. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Signatories. Who signs the letter?
I think I think it would be okay. It would be the chair of the well, it actually could be everybody who certainly everybody who votes in favor of it. We wouldn't ask somebody who didn't approve the letter to sign the letter, but so it could be everybody on the MAC who voted for it. It could be the chair and the ad hoc committee that's sponsoring the letter. I think again, it might be kind of situational.
Suggestion?
Yeah, okay.
Chair, and in the absence of the chair, the vice chair.
Agreed.
Okay.
It should be the chair as representative of the MAC, and again, vice chair if the, yeah, that's what.
Okay.
Really.
But I don't know if that needs to be said in here, but it would make it official. You always have a signature on a letter.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
So it should be the representative, the chief representative. So
yeah, okay, I'm good with that. People good with that? So shake your heads, yes, or thumbs up, or thumbs down if you don't agree. Okay. Okay, and then the next part is just kind of general guidelines. Yeah, bless you, whoever that was. So, and my thinking on this is partly we want to keep these things short. People don't like to do a lot of reading, so an important letter should have all the stuff right up front. So it should be one page, no more than 2 maximum. Should begin by stating the issue and our role as a community's voice. I'll just read through the whole thing and then you guys can add or subtract or comment. Distill what we know about the community's opinions on the matter. So, just laying out, as I put there in the parentheses, so that we're really providing information to the county. Not just that, oh, the community thinks this, but, we've heard from, if we have numbers, I think that's the best. We heard from 6 people wrote letters about the Carquinez-Arnold intersection at the last MAC meeting. So we know this is something important to the community and nobody disagrees with this. Or we heard, one contractor didn't like the idea of not being able to park there, maybe whatever. And then we request actions or make recommendations. So we'd like to request that, I'm just going to use that example, we request that a no parking sign be put up in front of the Mercantile, or maybe in other traffic areas. Please, please study this issue and determine, a course of action that will resolve these issues. Support for the letter, what was the vote? And then any supporting materials, wouldn't be part of the 2 pages, but they would just go to beef up, the public comment, the public record about whatever issue it was. So any comments about those guidelines? Yes, Councilmember Eagles. Hope you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I agree with them all. The only one that I'm not sure about and would like my fellow council member opinions, I would say that if the MAC approves it, we don't get into the nuance of how many approved, how many didn't. I would say, no, the MAC has voted, by Democratic vote or majority vote. It's a go. I would just take that one out, but I would appreciate other thoughts.
Any thoughts on that? Anyone else?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because we're stating the community's opinions on the matter, with numbers if possible. So, yeah, I think it makes a stronger letter. Thank you, Councilmember Eagles. And any other comments on these guidelines? Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Question?
Yeah.
Do we have to have approval from the supervisor for a letter? Say if one has been approved by the MAC itself, do we have to get final approval from the supervisors before sending something, since we serve at her pleasure?
Good question. Thank you, Mark. Yeah. Ariel, Hannah.
I think that would be a policy question for you all, but I assume the answer would be that you would want her approval, but I guess I think that would be part of your policy here. But again, we'll defer to Ariel as well.
I don't think you necessarily need her approval. I'm echoing Hannah. You would want her approval, but Yeah, I mean, you're not, generally it's going to be something that came out of a discussion at a MAC meeting. And the letter is going to be written and then approved at another MAC meeting. So I don't think you're going to be comment, and they will be about things that are in your purview, which is approved by her. So without a specific example, I don't know that you need her approval, her final approval on the letter after you've approved it. If that's the concern, that like an extra layer of sign off.
That was my question. I think that's what Mark's question was too. Yeah, Councilmember Cooper.
Couldn't we just have that as a MAC policy, that anything that we're going to mail out from the MAC just needs to be reviewed by her? I mean, we do work for her.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of,
what?
Yeah. I think that's fine if you want to add that in here, but that's part of the, you know, in your bylaws, it says that you don't go outreaching to county departments on your own, right? You loop our office in. It doesn't mean you can't email them, but so it's just kind of an extension of that, right? So
yeah. Okay, so that does seem like it's covered by the bylaws. So otherwise, we become a rogue council, I guess.
Well, I don't want to belabor this point, but I don't really feel like we work for Supervisor Gorn so much as we work for the community. We're supposed to be a representative of the community. And if we want to endorse a message that maybe isn't popular, I think we should be able to do that.
Oh, sure, of course. We can still do that, but we're supposed to be your eyes and ears into the community, and I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but that's me.
Yeah, I think, you know, the supervisor could always, you know, agree to send out the MAC letter or review the MAC letter. They don't really like it, but they're still allowed to be sent out, and they can just say, you know, this is what the community said, but I don't agree with it, which probably wouldn't win any votes.
well, and I'll just remind you that all of these letters and this policy and all of your work, right, is within the purview of your it's late now, but the advisory topics, your assigned advisory topics, right? So you're not going to be writing a letter about the war in Afghanistan, right? So as long as everything's folding under the advisory topics, I mean, I think you're probably pretty safe. She will review it because we will review it. So whether you want to add a point in here or not, I don't know, is that is vital, but if you would like to, that's also fine.
So how do people feel? Do we feel like we need to put that in writing? Thumbs up, or just leave it out because it's sort of part of our, so if you feel like we need to have that in writing, put your thumbs up. And if you feel like it's already in the bylaws, we don't really need it. Okay, and I think I would vote on that side, just to leave it out.
Yeah.
And it looks like we have consensus on that. Okay, any other comments on this? Any other changes people would want to see made on these procedures? And I'm sure these can be changed down the road if we find there's something that's not working or needs to be added. I'm sure we can, you know, we can make changes. All right, so do we have a motion to accept these procedures with the changes as have been expressed and agreed on in the meeting?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of accepting these procedures for MAC letters? Raise your hand, thumbs up.
Aye.
Say aye. Okay, unanimously approved. All right, we have a mechanism now. Yay.
Yay.
That's what this is all about, having a way to do this stuff, you know. I think yeah, hopefully it's a powerful tool of influence at some point when we need it. Okay, we're getting really far on here, and we've got two more. We've got reappointments to North Valley MAC, and we've got reports and announcements And we've got considerations of items for future agenda. So first let me just ask Hannah if, like, do we need to do the reappointments this month, or could we push that off into September?
Yeah, good question. I could do it really quickly. You're coming up on your year anniversary, so reappointments are something that'll be next month. So it might be good information to have in advance, but if we're really pressed for time, I don't necessarily have to do it. So up to you.
How does this sound? If we let's hear about the reappointments, but then let's push the reports on to next month. If people are okay, everybody okay with that? Thumbs up. Or if you're okay with that, thumbs up. Okay, let's do that. We'll hear about reappointments, and then we'll just move on quickly to consideration for future agenda, and then we'll wrap up the meeting. Okay, Hannah.
All right, one moment. All right, are you seeing that full screen?
Yes.
All right, so mindful of all your time, I'll go real quick, but I'm just going to talk to you about council member reappointments and the processes and timeline we have. So all current North Sonoma Valley MAC members were appointed or were sworn in on the first meeting, which was September 16th of last year. And just as a review, the membership is 7 members and 2 alternates, and you currently have 1 vacancy. All right, so we're going to jump into the bylaws here quickly. So first off, the appointment authority. So council members are appointed by Supervisor Gorin. Your term, so membership is a 2-year term, and council members can be reappointed for another term. Continuing our bylaw review, so you're in a unique situation now because the MAC is young, and so you're in your first year. When you all were appointed, there was a Class A who are serving 2-year terms and a Class B serving 1-year terms, so that you weren't all up for reappointment at the same time. So after this point, the first round of Class A and Class B, all terms will be 2 years. So the process and why we'll probably get this information out tonight, even though we're pressed for time. So Supervisor Gorin intends to reappoint all the MAC members who are currently in the Class B cycle serving that 1-year term. And I sent you all an email with this, but just in case you didn't see it, so those appointees, or in case you forgot, are up here, up for reappointment at the next meeting. So just a few odds and ends here. As I mentioned earlier, the MAC has 1 vacancy that we're currently accepting applications for. And also, should any current MAC member resign or wish not to renew their term, we would have to fill those vacancies as well. And then coming up is something we'll have to discuss. So when you were first started, the chair and vice chair were appointed by Supervisor Gorin, but from here on out, they are elected annually, and chairs and vice chairs can serve more than once, and they can serve, but no more than 2 consecutive years. So that's in the bylaws as well. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing so I can see all of you better for any questions you might have. I hope that was fast enough.
Thanks, Hannah. That was very fast.
Great.
Any questions for Hannah? Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser. Oh, got your.
Oh, we're still muted.
Mark, you muted.
Muted, Mark.
I think he knows he's just trying to get out.
No, I couldn't find my mouse. It escaped. Okay, so first question is, what about alternates, and do alternates become members, and how does that work? And then the other has to do with, does this have anything to do with the notices I've been getting from the county regarding an application for a position? Because it's like, oh, you started an application. Are you going to finish it? I was like, hello, yeah, that was like 2 years ago or whatever. So there you go.
I was not aware of those notices, and I don't know if Ariel.
How many of us have gotten those? I've been getting those.
Have all of you gotten those?
So little secret about me, I don't know anything about appointments, and like the previous person did that and now Hannah does it, but I didn't know that. It's probably because your terms are up, and it's probably an automated thing from the Maddie book, right, Hannah? I don't know. So that is probably, I don't know anything about
That
that.
makes
But
sense.
do we have to apply or respond to that and go into and do the application?
You do not have to reapply if you've already been appointed. And I will check with them to find out why you're being notified in that way and follow up with you all, because that is very interesting.
Yeah.
And
And
then
then
in
the
terms of,
alternate question.
and that one, if you have been appointed as an alternate, that you are an alternate, as far as I'm aware. If you would like to reapply for a different position, and Ariel can correct me if I'm wrong as well here too, but I believe.
Well, so our one vacancy is also an alternate position. If we had a vacancy as a regular member, then an alternate, I mean, that would be the simplest thing to do, would be to move an alternate into the vacancy of that regular member. We just aren't in that situation.
So are you, I'm sorry if I may jump in again. Are you going to ask the big question about the 4 individuals?
You're welcome to notify us here. You can send me an email if you intend to, or if you would like to confirm that you'd like to be reappointed, but Supervisor Gorn intends to reappoint all of those if you continue to be interested.
So I took that as a no.
I hope the 4 will all continue to serve, because it's been a good year and we've got a solid group. But
Any other questions?
And when do we need to do the election by?
That's my question.
Of chair and vice chair?
Yeah.
That would be at the next meeting.
Okay. So do we, and as far as, I mean, I'm happy to serve again, but I also am happy to turn it over to someone else. So do we ask for candidates, or how does that work?
Another interesting one, since it's your first time around. Ariel's jumping in. Let's see.
Well, I've never actually witnessed that either. But often how it's done is, you guys can politic sort of amongst yourselves as long as you don't break a quorum, right? As long as you don't violate the Brown Act. But usually it's all done in person at the meeting. So if, I would say if someone wants to nominate themselves or ask someone else to nominate them for chair or vice chair, and this goes for the current serving chair and vice chair, you probably want to prepare a little something to say, but that's not a requirement. You want to say, I would like to do this for XYZ reason. And then you're going to do a vote. And, you ask for people, say, do I have any nominations for chair or vice chair? We will check on who runs that item, because that is kind of an interesting procedural question that I won't belabor everyone with me puzzling about it right now. Whether the chair can run the item for perhaps someone trying to unseat them as chair in a controversial, so I don't know about that. This has been done many times in other bodies, so we'll get the information for you.
Okay, thanks.
Can you, sorry, just jumping in here, but can you move, like, could I say I'd like to move to keep Chair Dawson?
Yes.
You can do that. You can do that. Okay. I do that right now.
Save it for the next meeting.
Next week. Okay.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Political standpoints? All right, I think we can move on to the last item now, which is future agenda. We have the Kenwood Fire District update.
Through the chair, sorry, we didn't open for public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Any public comments on the reappointments to the MAC? Maybe there's somebody out there who would like to serve.
I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on now to consideration of items for the future agenda. So Kenwood Fire District update. I know the Ecology Center wants to talk about their some of their programs. So we kind of promised Monona that they could have some time. So that's probably a 30 minutes, something like that, 20, 30 minutes. Any other items we should think about for next time? And then of course there's the election too. So
prepare your speech, Arthur.
Yeah. Yeah, Councilmember Eagles.
Arthur, we also deferred the reports and announcements, and the FTC plans will be out probably about around mid-September. So I don't know if there'll be anything we can talk about there, but just to remind everybody about that. I think the traffic and safety would like to see at some point a multi-use or bike path topic, but I think in the interest of timing, probably not for next month. Anyway, so
yeah, sounds
but just
good.
for future, yeah.
Yeah. I had something on my mind and I forgot it, but let's see. Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Maybe Kate's got a good point. I think we should go ahead and just put STC on the agenda and just devote some time to it, because it's a timely issue, and I think that even though we may not have a specific item associated with that right now, I think it'd be good to agendize it.
Well, here's been my thinking, which I agree. I think we need to be ready when the alternates come out. And so I'm thinking, what if we basically activate the SDC committee, which I've forgotten who exactly is on that. Can anybody here on the SDC? Okay, so Kate,
Angela,
and Matt.
Yes.
Matt, okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, maybe we should have some discussion about, even if it's just like 10 minutes of like, okay, the SDC committee is activated, we've got the alternatives in hand, and now what should the committee do with those? What do we recommend? Just some guidance. I mean, you guys can run with it. I'm sure you've got lots of good ideas, but we can, we might help with the brainstorming, if that sounds good. So does that sound, if we try to keep that short, but we definitely make it an agenda item? Hannah, since we have the SDC committee, we're kind of saying it wasn't activated yet. So I think part of the thinking was once we activate it, then they have a year. Does that work? I mean, is that correct to think that?
I believe that was before my time, but it's an ad hoc, correct?
It's an ad hoc, yeah.
Okay, yes, a year. I believe that's correct.
So if they're right now, they're not activated. So so they're not serving out their year yet. Is that, Ariel, does that sound right?
So technically that's not correct, but we can just go with it because technically you shouldn't have officially formed it until you want them to go to work. But in the rules about ad hocs, it does say, I'm forgetting the exact language, but it's like they have a life of a year, but subject to slight extension. But if it's forever, then it becomes a standing committee. So I think in this case, it was done in good faith for a new commission and they haven't done anything. So I think it's fair to say that it can work that way.
And if
but in the future, really don't officially form ad hoc committees until you want them to do things. Yeah.
We just wanted to be ready to hit the ground running if need be. And if we have to, we could make it a standing committee eventually, if we feel like that's necessary, but that's a year from now at least. So we won't go there yet, depending how thorny things get. Okay, so I've got Kenwood Fire District update, Ecology Center presentation, nominations for officers, and then just a short sort of SDC activation item of where things are at, and if I suppose if this is sort of activating you guys now, but if you want to come to the meeting with some ideas for what you think you might do, that would make sense to me. If you want to give just a short report out, here's what we're ready to do, here's who we might work with, et cetera, et cetera. I think we could fit that in. Okay, any other ideas for next month? All right, well, thanks for hanging in there, everybody. It's been a long meeting, but I feel like we got a lot done, and And we'll see how next month is. I keep saying 2 hours. It seems like it's getting longer, but anyway, I'll drink more coffee next time beforehand. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for all your service. And I can't believe it's already been a year practically.
I know.
Thank you, Arthur. for
Thank
sharing.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Did you,
Damon.
did you guys vote to end the meeting?
We have
Oh,
not.
yes. Oh, yeah. Do I have a motion to end the meeting?
So moved.
Okay. All in
Second.
favor of ending the meeting? Thumbs up, wave your hand, shake your head. Okay. All right.
Good night,
Till
everyone.
next time.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.